In the spring of 1922, on a remote farm nestled in the rural heart of Bavaria, an entire family simply vanished. Not into thin air, but into a chilling, deafening silence. 6 people, 3 generations were brutally murdered in their own home. The killer was never caught. And the most disturbing evidence of all suggests that the murderer may have stayed in the house, living among the dead 4 days after the killings. This is the story of Germany's most infamous and haunting unsolved crime, the Hinterkaifeck Farm Murders. The farm itself was an isolated homestead, its name Hinterkaifeck, a local term meaning behind the woods. It was located near the small village of Griborn in southern Germany, but it was far from any real neighbors. The farm belonged to the Gruber family. At its head was Andreas Gruber, a stern and withdrawn man, and his wife Cecilia. Living with them was their widowed daughter, Victoria Gabriel, and her 2 young children, 7-year-old Cecilia and a 2-year-old infant named Joseph. Just hours before the tragedy, a new maid, Maria Baumgartner, had arrived, stepping unknowingly into a death trap. The farm sat alone, a solitary island surrounded by a dense forest. There were no close neighbors to hear a scream, and no easy routes to escape. It was the perfect setting for a nightmare. In the days and weeks leading up to the crime, the farm was cloaked in an atmosphere of creeping dread. Andreas Gruber, not a man easily spooked, began noticing strange and unsettling things. He told neighbors about a set of footprints in the fresh snow, leading directly from the forest to the farmhouse, but mysteriously, there were no tracks leading back. He complained of hearing strange noises, like footsteps, coming from the attic directly above the family's bedrooms. A house key went missing. A newspaper that none of the family had purchased suddenly appeared on the property. But when he shared his fears, people were dismissive. This was a place with a reputation. The previous maid had quit her job abruptly 6 months earlier, fleeing in terror and claiming the farm was haunted. She was so convinced of it that she refused to ever set foot on the property again. The Grubers, however, stayed. They were isolated, and their warnings were ignored, leaving them alone to face whatever was lurking in the shadows. The murders took place sometime during the night of Friday, March 31st, 1922. The timeline is chillingly precise, pieced together by investigators who believe the killer employed a cruel and methodical strategy. It seems the killer lured the family members into the barn, one by one, under some unknown pretext. First was likely Victoria, followed by her mother Cecilia, then her father Andreas, and finally, the 7-year-old child, Cecilia. Inside the barn, away from the main house, they were met with unimaginable violence. The murder weapon was a mattock, a heavy farming tool similar to a pickaxe, which was later found on the property. Each blow was delivered with brutal, overwhelming force to the head. Each death was deliberate and swift. After dispatching the 4 family members in the barn, the killer then turned their attention to the house itself. Inside, the newly hired maid, Maria Baumgartner, was attacked and killed in her bed in her small chamber. Finally, the murderer went to the nursery, where the youngest victim, 2-year-old Joseph, was sleeping peacefully in his crib. He, too, was murdered. Forensic analysis later revealed a horrifying detail about the little girl Cecilia. In her final moments, she had survived the initial attack long enough to tear out clumps of her own hair in agony and terror before she died. The silence that followed was absolute. For 4 long days, the farm remained eerily quiet. Neighbors who had seen the family at church the previous Sunday started to grow concerned. Young Cecilia had been absent from school without an explanation. The family's mail began to pile up, uncollected. Oddly enough, a coffee machine repairman named Albert Hoffner visited the farm on April 1st. After the murders had already taken place, he waited for about an hour, calling out for the family. He heard nothing but the sounds of the farm animals and the dog barking inside the barn. Seeing no one, he left, assuming they were out. He hadn't noticed anything was wrong. Finally, on April 4th, a search party of neighbors decided to investigate. They entered the property, and the first thing they found was the silence. Inside the barn, their worst fears were realized. They discovered the bodies of Andreas Cecilia Sr., Victoria, and the younger Cecilia, partially covered with hay. Inside the house, they found the maid Maria in her room and little Joseph in his crib. All 6 were dead. The search party had stumbled upon one of the most gruesome crime scenes in German history. But as police began their investigation, a disturbing and almost unbelievable detail emerged. The evidence strongly suggested that the killer did not flee after the murders. Instead, they remained at the farm for several days. The family's livestock, the cows, the pigs, the chickens, had all been fed and cared for. Meals had been prepared and eaten in the kitchen. The fireplace had been kept burning, keeping the house warm against the late winter chill. Even the family dog had been looked after. The murderer had, for all intents and purposes, become the master of the house, living calmly among the bodies of their victims, hidden just yards away in the barn and bedrooms. This detail transformed a brutal murder case into a tale of pure psychological horror. The police investigation that followed was, by modern standards, a catastrophe. The crime scene was immediately contaminated. News of the horrific discovery spread like wildfire, and soon, dozens of people from the surrounding villages swarmed the farm. They walked through the house, touched objects, and inadvertently destroyed crucial evidence. Shockingly, some people even took souvenirs from the property. The bodies were moved before being properly examined. To make matters worse, the autopsies were performed right there in the barn, further compromising the scene. Over the years, police would question more than 100 suspects, from former farmhands and neighbors to estranged family members and rumored lovers of Victoria. But with a botched crime scene and little physical evidence to go on, every lead eventually went cold. With no definitive answers, theories and dark rumors began to swirl. Some believed the killer had to be someone the family knew, someone who could have lured them into the barn without a struggle. Suspicion fell on Lorenz Schlittenbauer, a neighbor who was rumored to have been Victoria Slover and the biological father of her son, Joseph. He was part of the initial search party and behaved strangely at the scene, but his involvement was never proven. Another theory pointed to Carl Gabriel, Victoria's husband, who was officially declared killed in action in France during World War I. Some whispered that he had not died, but had returned to find his wife with another man's child, and committed the murders in a jealous rage. There were also ugly, persistent rumors of an incestuous relationship between Victoria and her father, Andreas, leading some to speculate that the motive was rooted in a dark family secret. Despite decades of investigation, including modern re-examinations of the case, no suspect has ever been officially charged with the crime. The year after the murders, in 1923, the farm of Hinterkaifeck was completely demolished. The family's bodies were eventually laid to rest, but their skulls were kept for further study and were lost during the chaos of World War II. Today, the land where the farmhouse once stood is empty. A small, simple memorial has been erected, a solemn tribute to the 6 lives that were so brutally cut short. But the mystery remains. Who was watching the farm from the woods? Who entered the house without leaving a trail? Who stayed behind to tend to the animals? And why, on that cold March night, did no one hear a single thing? The Hinterkaifeck Farm Murders are more than just an unsolved crime. They are a chilling reminder of the dangers of isolation, of fear that is ignored, and of how a profound silence can hide a killer in plain sight. More than a century has passed since that terrible night. The case remains open, the questions unanswered, and the farm, once a home full of life, is still hauntingly quiet, forever holding on to its dark and terrible secret. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as haunting as I did, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries.